Welcome to the Scarlet Report. I know, it's been a while, but guys, life gets in the way. Being an adult is so overrated. If you are 15 or 16, stop growing. These are the best years of your life. Now, rant over. Arsenal is a strategic management blueprint for Manchester United. That's quite the idea, isn't it? But I'll be honest with you. I am genuinely a huge fan of what Arsenal did between 2019 and 2024 in terms of strategic management. And I believe that whatever blueprint they follow could just be the right solution for Manchester United so we can get out of this crisis we've been in for the past 11 years. Now, of course, in order for us to know where we are going, we have to know where we are coming from. So I'm inviting you to step into a time machine for us to go back to August 2011. On a day where Manchester United beat Arsenal FC 8-2 at Old Trafford. Without any further ado, let's analyze. Alright, so these are the Manchester United and Arsenal lineups from that 8-2 win at Old Trafford against Arsenal in August 2011. But here, now this is very important, guys, because what I'm going to show you here is how the tables have turned for both Manchester United and Arsenal. When you look at this Arsenal team, there is nothing, with the exception of Robin van Persie, that is truly threatening about Arsenal. And a lot of these signings, now when you watch them play, when you watch these players now in hindsight, I still remember this game. I mean, I was 21 when I watched it, jumping around like a baboon because of all of the fun and the pleasure I was getting from this performance. These were not really good players. And most of them did not go to, better clubs after they left Arsenal. Most of them either retired or downgraded, with the exception of Szczesny, potentially Ramsey when he went to Juventus, but suffered from a lot of injuries. And of course, Robin van Persie, who came to Manchester United to win his league title. But what you can see here is that look at the substitute bench. They had nothing. Marwan Shamah, the Moroccan international, had 6 good months at Arsenal and then completely disappeared. Oxlade-Chamberlain, who left to go to Liverpool. Fabianski currently at West Ham. But when you compare this to Manchester United, holy moly. Oh, guys, first of all, Johnny Evans played in that game. Come on, guys, all right? But also, don't even look at these guys, okay? These guys were amazing. But look at the bench. Rio Ferdinand, Berbatov, they did not even play. We did not even need them. And then you have players like Giggs, Park Ji-sung, and Javier Hernandez who come in the second half, as substitutes. Now, when you compare this to the Manchester United-Arsenal game yesterday, this was the 1-0 defeat with that Trossard goal. Now, as you can see, the opposite is true. First of all, we have to talk about something, an elephant in the room, if you may. None of the Arsenal players, with the exception probably of Tomiyasu, though he played there for Bologna, are playing out of position. Every player is playing exactly the role that he's supposed to. And also, these players are barely injured. You know, this partnership of Ben White, Odegaard, and Saka on the right-hand side of Arsenal. For the past 2 years, they've played most of the games together. This is why they built such an amazing understanding between each other. Then you have Gabriel and Saliba. This season, they've started 33 out of 37 Premier League matches. And that was the case last season as well. Partnership, clear understanding between the players. And then, of course, when you look at their bench, oh, come on, guys. Players like Smith Rowe, Nketiah, Vieira, and Zinchenko are not even needed, right? And then they can bring in Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, Quior, and Jorginho, obviously. Look at Manchester United. We only have Anthony and Eriksen on the bench. And of course, we do have players, Evans and Casemiro have barely played together. Casemiro is not a centre-back. Diogo Dalot is playing as left-back when he's supposed to play right-back. And of course, without Bruno Fernandes, we have no bite whatsoever, no creativity whatsoever. So basically what this shows is that the tables have turned for Manchester United and Arsenal. Basically, we switched places in that they were hopelessly underprepared in 2011 and we were hopelessly underprepared this season, okay? Now, why is this extremely important? Is because Manchester United have actually a lot of things in common with Arsenal, mainly the fact that back in 2011, both Manchester United and Arsenal were cult of personality type of football clubs. Both of us were built around larger-than-life characters. Arsene Wenger for Arsenal and Sir Alex Ferguson for Manchester United. Now, the only reason why it worked for us longer than it did for Arsenal is because Sir Alex Ferguson is Sir Alex Ferguson. He was able to reinvent himself so many times that he could keep that longevity and stay competitive. But in the case of Arsenal, Arsene Wenger's last real good team, like genuinely good team, was that 2006 Arsenal team that reached the Champions League final against Barcelona. Now, after this defeat, 8-2 against Manchester United, I started reading a lot of opinion pieces on how Arsenal were actually attempting on looking at ways to move towards a more continental business model. A business model that was built around, director of football, technical directors, sporting directors, head of recruitment, an actual structure, not built around one manager. And Arsenal actually started making that change far earlier than us. Okay? Now, of course, it didn't work instantly because Arsene Wenger stayed until 2018. And Arsenal still attempted. They hired a lot of sporting directors, technical directors, head of recruitments, etc. But it didn't work, mainly, I suspect, because Arsene Wenger was still asserting some sort of influence at Arsenal. But of course, the one moment or the one appointment that has changed everything for Arsenal is, of course, the appointment of Edu Gaspar. Now, those of you who don't know who Edu is, he was a member of that famous Invincibles Arsenal team. He was in that midfield with Ray Parlour, Vieira, and Gilberto Silva. Amazing midfield, by the way. But after he retired, he actually went to Corinthians when he became a director of football, and then he became a team coordinator for the Brazilian national team. And then he was hired by Arsenal in 2019 as a technical director, and then eventually as director of football. Now, of course, technical director, former player, it's actually similar to Darren Fletcher at Manchester United, but the difference is that Edu had actual relevant experience as an operator, a football administrator, while Darren Fletcher only had his experience as a former player. The other things that Arsenal actually told Edu, run with it. Do whatever it takes. You got the reins. While at Manchester United, Darren Fletcher was there. It was just a ceremonial role because we know the Glazers were in charge. Ed Woodward was in charge. Now, of course, Edu, starting for 2019, and this is when Arsenal really started changing, started making some amazing decisions. So when he was hired, Unai Emery was on his first season. But of course, Edu, and this is why I'm talking about strategic management when I talk about Edu Gaspar, in that he thought, where do I want Arsenal to be 5 years from now? Well, the idea was, Pep Guardiola's Manchester City play amazing football and they win. So let's aspire to be like them. I want to look at them in the eye and challenge them man to man. How can I reach that in 5 years? And so obviously he thought of hiring Mikel Arteta, because Mikel Arteta was then assistant manager to Pep Guardiola in Manchester City. A lot of people, these people in football, they talk to each other. They know a lot about each other. And so the idea was to bring in Mikel Arteta. So he brought him in right after Unai Emery got fired. It was around October, November. But Edu already started building that foundation. So here let's look at some of his transfer dealings. So on his first transfer window, which was summer of 2019, he brought in the likes of Saliba for 30 million from Saint-Etienne, as well as an unknown kid from Ituano, not from Grêmio Porto Alegre, not from Fluminense, not from Santos, from Ituano, called Gabriel Martinelli. And of course, he promoted an unknown Bukayo Saka. Of course, there was that Nicolas Pepe transfer, but Nicolas Pepe for Lille was actually amazing that season. Why wouldn't you buy him? But of course, you cannot have wins. Sometimes you have a few duds. That was the one. But here, Saliba, Martinelli, and Saka already starting to bring in those building blocks of this Arsenal team that is probably about to win the Premier League this season. The next season brings in Partey, Gabriel, Odegaard on loan, right? And then later on turns him permanent. Turns Odegaard permanent, brings in Ben White, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, right? And then, of course, we have the big hitters, the Gabriel Jesus, Vieira, Zinchenko, Trossard, Jorginho, and then, of course, as well, Declan Rice, Havertz, Timber, and Raya. Now notice that it took until 2022-2023 that Arteta was actually able to bring players that he knew personally, Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, mainly because I suspect that Arsenal were actually trying to bring in title winners, people who have won titles before, to bring in that winner mentality. But now, as you can see, Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko are not really needed at Arsenal. Probably they could leave this summer. But the sign is that Edu brought in, the ones that Arteta didn't really know, those are the ones that work. Now, when I compare this to Erik ten Hag, I suspect that Erik ten Hag is choosing players that he knows or that he plays against, mainly because he doesn't have options. He's let down by the structure at Manchester United. And I think that John Murtho, who was director of football at Manchester United, also doesn't have a lot of self-confidence in his own ability to look Erik ten Hag in the eye and be like, no, I have better options. Here, 3 options, choose one from my options. And let's not go just for the players that you know. So I think that Erik ten Hag is going with those players out of necessity, and because there is a gap in Manchester United. But as you can see here, every transfer window, Edu was bringing in 2-3 players that were part of the building block that made up this team that has beaten us 1-0 at Old Trafford, and that is actually probably gonna win the Premier League title, or at least come really close, okay? Now, all of this is good, but how about the results? Because there is also another thing to what Edu did that is extremely amazing and inspiring, and that we definitely need to learn from. And it's this. So here, obviously, when Arsenal finished 6th, this was in the 2017-2018 season. That was Arsene Wenger's last season, finished 6th. Then Unai Emery comes in, finishes 5th in the next season, and then he gets fired in October, I think, or November of this season. So Mikel Arteta, in both his first seasons, he finishes 8th. Both seasons. That means he had a season as bad as the one that Erik ten Hag is having twice. By the way, during this time, I enjoyed watching Arsenal Fan TV. It was so funny because they were on a meltdown continuously. Every single week, I would tune in and laugh my ass off, okay? Next season, he finishes 5th. So he goes 8th, 5th. By Arsenal standards and by Manchester United standards, this is not good enough. And yet, at no point did Edu or Arsenal ever doubt Mikel Arteta. And look at this, 6th under Arsene Wenger, and then 5th under Unai Emery, and then 8th twice under Arteta. So things definitely got worse under Arteta before they eventually got better, that now Arsenal are challenging for the league title. It got worse, so much worse, before it got better. So now the beauty of Edu's plan at Arsenal was that Mikel Arteta was not the plan. He was just one piece among many pieces in the puzzle. And Edu, was a great football operator, knew full well that for the plan to work, first of all, there needs to be consistency. Everybody needs to be on board, but also a lot of pieces have to fall into place. Therefore, when Arteta finished 8th and 5th, Edu never ever thought about firing him, because he understood that what he was seeing in front of him was not the real Mikel Arteta, that this guy had a much higher potential. It was not blind faith. It was just a recognition of the reality. If you want to go from being, that lousy kind of mid football club that they were under Arsene Wenger to actually challenging one of the best sides in the history of the Premier League, it's gonna need time. You're gonna need to make some sacrifices, make some tough choices, and you're gonna need to be patient and humble. And you have to think of a process, set up objectives, and then just trust in the process. And that's what Edu has done. And it's something that many Manchester United fans are unable to understand or wrap their heads around. Okay? Erik ten Hag, you can blame him all you want. He's operating in a dysfunctional structure. This structure that Manchester United has is not built for performance. It's not built for success. And since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, we were always focused on focusing the plan, outsourcing the plan to one man. Oh, it's David Moyes, 6-year contract. Trust him, he was picked by Sir Alex Ferguson. Didn't work. Oh, Louis van Gaal. Our plan is Louis van Gaal. Didn't work. Jose Mourinho, that's our plan. Didn't work. Stop putting your plan and your destiny in the hands of one person, one manager. A manager should be one piece of the puzzle, nothing more, and they need to have a whole support system. And this is why I am optimistic about what's going on with Ineos, because Radcliffe, that's what he's put in Manchester United right now, with the likes of Omar Berrada, with the likes of Jason Wilcox, Jean-Claude Blanc, who is involved with the board of directors, and of course Dan Ashford eventually when he joins. These are the people who are going to be responsible for that strategic management at Manchester United that we need. Now, whether Erik ten Hag is a part of that in the future, in the near future, or the long-term future, I don't know, I'm not sure about, but what I want at Manchester United is the same strategic thinking that Edu has shown in 2019, which has resulted in them challenging for the title last season and this season. And unless we do that, we are never gonna see the light. And in fact, last year, or not last year, I think in the beginning of the season, right after we lost to Arsenal, I made a video where I used an ice cube melting as an analogy. Basically just saying that if the room is at negative 20 degrees and an ice cube is in front of you that you're trying to see melt, it's not gonna melt until it reaches 0 degrees. And you could be at negative 2 degrees and the ice cube would still not melt. Basically saying that sometimes, even though it seems far, you're actually closer than you think. Remember with Arteta, he finishes 8-8 after they finished 5th and 6th under Arsene Wenger and Unai Emery. So by all means, it's a fact that they were falling behind, that they were getting worse. And yet they weren't. They were actually getting closer. Because sometimes you need to slow down before you accelerate. And that's something that Edu understood. And that's what we need when you're running a football club or any organization for that matter. That's that type of foresight, vision, which at Manchester United under the Glazers we never had. And that's not down to the head coach or the manager. That's the structure behind the manager. And I really hope, I sincerely hope that that's what Ineos are trying to establish. If that's what they do, I am telling you that success is down the road. Is it going to be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 7 years, in 10 years? I don't know. But I know that we are going to be headed somewhere, that we're going to be headed in the right direction. Now, I know not a lot of you are going to agree with me. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of this. Let's start up a conversation. Until next time, cheers.